From the heart of South Asia to the crossroads of Central Asia, from the turbulent Middle East and North Africa to the power corridors of the West, where perspectives collide, narratives matter, and stories connect. This is Beyond Borders, and I'm Umar. But during the course of today's show, as we've been doing during the last shows as well, we'll be bringing you stories which we feel in a world that does not have any boundaries or any borders, and that is what the show is all about. And we bring you issues that are extremely important in this changing world. We'll begin, as we always do, with the top stories of the day, all in our words, region lines. We start from South Asia, where the Pakistan military has scored a notable success in its four-day clash with India, a victory acknowledged by the US-China Economic and Security Review Commission in its report. The report submitted to the US Congress credits the outcome to the deployment of modern Chinese weaponry. Pakistan said it downed 7 Indian planes in air-to-air combat during the conflict, while US President Donald Trump most recently said that 8 planes were essentially shot down. Meanwhile, security forces eliminate dozens of terrorists linked to the Indian proxy fitna al-Khawarij in multiple operations. Also at the UN Security Council, Denmark says the banned Tehreek-e-Taliban has carried out multiple high-profile attacks in Pakistan from the Afghan soil, warning that the terrorist group continues to receive logistical and substantial support from the de facto authorities in Afghanistan. We move on to the Middle East, where Israeli strikes killed dozens of more Palestinians in the war-torn Gaza Strip. Qatar condemns the brutal attacks by the Israeli occupation, calling them a dangerous escalation that threatens to undermine the ceasefire agreement. In the West, US President Donald Trump signs a bill ordering the release of government files related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The bill requires the US Justice Department to release within 30 days all information that it holds on investigations into Epstein. And lastly, a solid gold toilet was sold for $12.1 million at Sotheby's in New York City. The art piece, called America, created by Italian conceptual artist Maurizio Catalan, is a fully functional toilet made from more than 101 kilograms of solid 18-karat gold. We'll begin with South Asia, and of course our leading story concerns Pakistan versus India and how the world continues to acknowledge Pakistan's strategic victory. New revelations are reshaping global understanding of the four-day clash between Pakistan and India in May this year. A report submitted to the US Congress by the US-China Economic and Security Review Commission formally acknowledges Pakistan's military success over India, exposing New Delhi's propaganda campaign backed by global media coverage. The report confirms India's aircraft losses and rejects New Delhi's narrative, leaving the Modi government facing fresh embarrassment. Pakistan maintains that 7 Indian aircrafts were shot down, while President Donald Trump suggests that the tally may have been even higher. The report says also highlights the deepening China-Pakistan security partnership. Now, this is also from counter-terrorism drills and naval exercises to Beijing's offers of 5th-generation J-35s and ballistic missile defense systems, a development India views with growing concern. President Donald Trump has again underscored Pakistan's advantage during the May conflict, saying as many as 8 Indian aircraft were essentially down. His remarks further reinforce the congressional report's conclusion about Islamabad's aerial dominance. Now, to discuss more on that, we've been joined by Umar all the way from the US, and also we'll be joined by other guests during the course of the show who will be introducing them as they come online. But of course, our second guest is also here, Air Marshal Aamir Masood Saab. He's a defense analyst. Thank you very much, first of all, Air Marshal Saab, to have joined us, and secondly, Umar, to have joined us as well. We'll begin with you, Umar. How do you interpret the US congressional report's acknowledgement of Pakistan's military success over India, especially given the geopolitical weight that is attached to such an assessment?
Thank you, Umar. I think it's significant for two reasons. One, it's completely independent. Second, it's American. And as you've seen from decades of history, Washington rarely credits Pakistan in military terms. So this is a clear signal that Pakistan performed effectively in that 4-day air clash. And this should not be taken for granted at all. This is a major significant milestone for us, and it really credits the what Pakistan has been saying, and we've proven it not just with words but also with our performance uh, in the May clash.
All right, coming to you, Air Marshal Saab, to what extent did this brief conflict shift the military balance between India and Pakistan, particularly in the air domain?
This report does also substantiate our claims, and it's not the first time. Last time also in Pulwama, it was Christina Fair, an independent analyst and rather pro-Indian analyst. While giving interview to one India Today, she very categorically said that though you have claimed an F-16 against Pakistan, I would have expected that Indians may have shot one of the F-16s, but it never happened. So Pakistan didn't lose any jet in Pulwama campaign. It didn't lose any jet in this one also in Markai Haq. And so this is something very significant, against an air force which claims to be almost third or fourth in the world. And in terms of its inventory, it's almost three times that of Pakistan. It's got few of the best and state-of-art technologies with it. And in last 5 years, was able to induct three of the very, significant and cutting-edge technologies, including Rafale system, drone system by the Israelis, Heron and Harpies, and plus the S-400 air defense system, which is one of the most formidable air defense system of Russian origin. So with all these technologies in hand and a lot of budget going to Indian Air Force, which is almost four times that of the Pakistan Air Force, and significant to the Indian military, which is almost again about six times that of the Pakistan military budget. So almost 10 times, I would say. So with all these things at their disposal, such a big air force losing against an air force is something which is, very encouraging for Pakistan. It is something which is a great morale booster for Pakistan and something to be concerned for the Indians because they came with 80 jets and they were having all sorts of technologies which were at their disposal, and against almost 40 jets half of their size, they were able to lose 7 to 8 jets in first 30 minutes. So that shows exactly that how much of training, how much of wherewithal, how much of employment they have, and the concepts they were able to improve over a period of so many decades. I would say that this is a serious concern, and this has been building up for many years. In Pulwama, they were able to lose jets, and they would have been shot even badly in Pulwama as well. But they didn't learn many of the lessons. They were always able to develop their air force, which was based on the platform-centric concept. Whereas Pakistan Air Force, Alhamdulillah, was able to introduce the system-centric concept in the Air Force. And whenever they inducted any of the technologies, Pakistan Air Force was able to induct it, fuse it, integrate it well within the system. And it became a part of the comprehensive system or the network centricity. The multi-domain operations were only possible because we were able to have all our systems, all our players in the battlefield on a single grid. And that really made the difference against the Indian Air Force, who had been always trained on an old concept, which is a second and third generation concept, flying a machine which is fourth and fifth generation, with concept which are second generation or third generation, you would never be able to employ them very effectively, and you will never be able to get the results which they were not able to do so in Pulwama as well as in the Operation Sindoor. And this also speaks of how much of the training they have for their pilots against with some of the most modern systems which they have. Uh, so this is, the successive air chiefs have shown concern about the government's high-handedness and their inability to invest much on the Air Force needs and requirements, which they claim that they are fighting a two-front war against China and Pakistan. But in this particular scenario and in the previous scenario as well, they were not able to face a single front, which is a smaller front against Pakistan. So, what to talk about China? In this report, in the American Congress report, is very significantly and very clearly mentioned that Chinese technology has improved a lot, and they were able, Pakistani pilots were able to employ, Pakistan Air Force was able to employ that technology very effectively. So it's a matter of concern for the West. And futuristic technology also they mentioned of F-35, the stealth fighter, the fifth generation fighter, which is almost operational in the Chinese Air Force and may be inducted in Pakistan Air Force and will be a significant threat for the India in future. So I personally think that this report is a clear mandate. It's a clear victory for Pakistan Air Force and their claims, which had always been very rational, which has always been accurate, whether it was Pulwama or it was Operation Sindoor. Pakistan has always claimed what they have been able to shoot.
All right, wonderful. And I think that reinforces Pakistan's perspective as well as, and also the international bodies are doing exactly the same. Dr. Amna Mahmood, leading international affairs analyst, joins us in the studio. Dr. Amna, what a pleasure to see you after such a long time. Hope you and the family are doing well. This US congressional report, which is also reinforced by international channels such as TRT and others, and backed by Donald Trump, who says that Pakistan is down 8 planes and not even 7 planes. What does this mean for the international narrative as far as the main conflict between Pakistan and India is concerned?
Thank you, Umar. Thank you for inviting me for after a long.
Yes, true,
As
true.
your program setup is changed, so I was, not available at this time. It's always been a player here, and this report is also very, it's very morale boosting for all Pakistanis. Those who have having a little doubt about the accuracy, they are now clear that now Modi Saab cannot challenge this report. And the international narrative, Umar, I think that it was already in favor of Pakistan. You see the developments after this small war, the world attitude, the way Americans treated us and the American administration and the whole Middle Eastern friends even treated us, that is actually the revelation of the fact that Pakistan really won. And it's not a matter of 6 or 7 or 8 planes or maybe 10 planes. It's a matter of the ultimate supremacy Pakistani Air Force established over the Indian sources, that is 5 times bigger military to Pakistan. So now it comes that it is not the size, it is the skill, it is the strategy, it is the capacity that matters. And that Pakistani Air Force, not only the Air Force, but the whole military proof that we are ready to face any challenge. And despite having limited resources, we are having high capacity to deal with. And that India, they are embarrassed that their 8 planes are shot down. But as our sources revealed earlier, that we had capacity to do even more.
Much more.
Much more. And we stopped because we don't want to escalate the war in the region. So I
That
think
is what
that
Pakistan has always wanted. It has never wanted war and escalation of any conflict, but it has the right to, react to any such incident that happens, whether it comes from India or whether it comes from Afghanistan. Anyways, let's go to Umar. Umar, now with evidence that shows clearly Pakistan's effective military strategy and India's fabricated propaganda exposed, how will this shape future regional military dynamics as well as diplomatic messaging in your point of view?
There's always been this pattern, what we've talked about before also, that there's always an attack, there's an accusation, it escalates quickly, and India always either walks it back later or fails to show any evidence. And what you saw in May was sort of an impulsive escalation, which is very dangerous in a nuclear environment. And that's where, Donald Trump and his administration played a really great role in de-escalating. What this does for us in terms of with the international community is that what Pakistan has been saying for decades, that India is India is the belligerent neighbor in this region. They create tensions. They create this impulsive escalation, which can just run off and could easily become an all-out war. Um, they're going to take us more seriously now. And with this report coming out, again, an independent report coming out, sort of supporting everything that Pakistan had been saying following the war in May, it just proves that we have credibility, and we've always had credibility, um, and uh, and anything that we say from now on, I think, is going to be taken more seriously rather than just accusations. They know that we mean what we say, and we have evidence.
All right. Aamir Saab, coming to you, India's commentators, I mean, now also after this report came out, there's a lot of hue and cry from the Indian media as well. They're trying to downplay it or try to completely change the whole narrative of that commission's report, which of course they can't. Anyways, India's commentators also viewed the joint Pakistan-China drills as a direct threat to their territorial integrity. Now, what I'd like to understand from you, how was this trilateral dynamic, this Pakistan, China, India dynamic, how has this shifted since the month of May in your point of view?
So, I mean, at least, one thing is very clear, and that has to be clear in the hearts and minds of the Indian leadership also, that what they have been really talking about and had been talking at different levels, that India is facing a two-front war. So, and they will be able to fight the two-front war with the help of the United States or Russia or through their own might. And they have that capacity and wherewithal to do that. So this is very much clear that they are not even capable of fighting a single front war. And with China dynamics coming in and the amount of military might which China was able to display on their military day, it speaks volume of the way the transformation that has taken place and the state of art technology, the cutting edge technology which Chinese have today. So that is something to be really concerned of. And this definitely the partnership between China and Pakistan, whether it's a military technology, whether it is space or cyber, on in all the domains, they are now well integrated, and both China and Pakistan are definitely hand in gloves while they're using, employing, and deploying all these technologies. So this has to be very much clear. Whatever technology comes into China will subsequently be a part of the Pakistan military also. And Pakistan military and China have been developing many things jointly. While China has been of great help to us in transfer of technology or giving us few state-of-the-art systems, on the other side, Pakistan for decades have been also helping China in giving them few of the best technologies, sharing with them few of the expertise in the domain, whether it is Air Force or Army or Navy. And Pakistan had been a great resource of sharing of the technology with the Chinese also, and of the tactics as well. So these the modernization of Air Force, which we see in the PLA, Pakistan Liberation Army Air Force, there's a lot to do and a lot of support which Pakistan has been able to give to China. So this partnership has been mutually beneficial for both the countries. And today we see and has been acknowledged by the United States also that Chinese technology is one of the best, and they have transformed their military into the top militaries of the world. And let me tell you, because I've been able to fly both the American and Chinese systems starting from late 1980s. And today I can say it with guarantee that what the Chinese technologies used to be in the 90s, there had been a significant, I would say there's a big transformation in the Air Force, Army, and Navy, and in other areas also in China, whether it be the logistics systems or the maintenance systems or practices or the research and development area. Previously, Chinese used to be known for copying the or doing the reverse engineering of the Western technologies. Today, I can say it with 100% assurity that China research and development is much ahead of many of the Western countries, if not in parity with America. They are going to be very close in the coming years, and especially in the areas like cyber, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing, etc., and the 5G and the 6G technologies. They are moving ahead of America, and they're embedding these technologies, the disruptive technologies, into the military domain and creating few of the most lethal and state-of-art weapon systems in drone technology and autonomous systems. So I would say that China definitely, along with Pakistan, partnership have taken a new strategic dimension. And for the region, I would say it's better for creating peace, harmony. So India should better think of, engaging rather than containing this partnership. It would be better for them not to do any sort of adventurism with either of the country on the behest of any global power. And that would, definitely be good for the region as well as for the trio which you have mentioned, including Pakistan, India, and China.
All right, all right. I mean, that's an interesting concept, and I think the more the world realizes it, the more India also can now say that, or maybe not deny the fact of what happened in these 4 days of conflict in May. Dr. Amna, Trump continues to credit Pakistan for their superiority, for outperforming India in this May conflict. What impact do such public perceptions by important people such as a US president have on global perceptions of the balance of power in South Asia?
Actually, there is no balance of power in South Asia.
All right.
As we have seen, that balance was in favor of India, and that's why US signed a nuclear deal in 2005 with India, and they have abandoned long time partnership during the period of Cold War with Pakistan at the cost of India. But now they are clear about it, that what miracles Pakistan has achieved, they should enjoy that benefit. And as they were making alliance with India against China, but now they are not able to counter China with the help of this weak technological, strategic, and military partner. So they are thinking in terms of shifting their power. These superpowers, they are not the friends of any. They are having their own concepts of balance of power, and that they make alliance with the power they want to use at that time. They have been doing this during the period of Cold War, and now Mr. Trump is again in a new Cold War, that he wanted to revive the unchallengeable position and sole superpower status of the United States. And in that way, he has to counter China and Russia, and they are in alliance with each other, and they are expanded in the form of SCO, BRISC, and number of other such regional and trans-regional alliances. So Mr. Trump wanted to, I think, revive Pakistan as its strategic partner.
Well, that is revived. That is revived. Not only is that revived, but also the fact that a sitting US president praises Pakistan to such an extent goes a long way in highlighting Pakistan's position, Pakistan's strategic superiority, and Pakistan's diplomatic outreach and success in the last few months. I think this is very important. This is the message that we will take from this congressional report and the other messages, like the one Trump has been saying at different places as far as Pakistan's strategic air superiority is concerned as well.
But it happened, Umar, mind us that it happened immediately after the strike India did, and how we responded after 2 days.
So that is also a stark reminder for India to not attempt such misadventures again.
As Aamir sir was mentioning, that India has got this message that previously they were thinking that Pakistan is alone and they can fight.
And now that message is loud and clear that Pakistan is no longer alone. But speaking of India, Dr. Amna, our next story also concerns India, because Denmark, ladies and gentlemen, issues a stark warning At the United Nations Security Council, the banned TTP, with nearly 6,000 fighters, is receiving logistical and substantial support from Afghan authorities. This is what the report says. They say, and this comes as ISIL or other affiliates and other extremist groups are expanding their footprint across Central and South Asia. Pakistan, of course, having sacrificed over 80,000 lives in the fight against terrorism, says these threats are growing because Kabul has failed to curb cross-border militancy. Also, on the 18th and 19th November this very year, 7 Khawarij belonging to Indian proxy Fitna al-Khawarij have been killed in 3 separate engagements in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in Momand. 4 Khawarij were sent to hell. In Lucky Marwat district, 2 Khawarij were effectively neutralized, and in the third encounter in Tang district, more troops successfully neutralized 1 more Khawarij. Now, Pakistan's security forces have also killed 23 militants linked to the Indian-sponsored group Al-Khawarij, Fitna al-Khawarij, in 2 intelligence-based operations in Kurram. The ISPR has said the back-to-back air missions reflect the full momentum of the Azm-e-Istehkam as sanitization continues to eliminate all the foreign-backed terrorism. We'll discuss different aspects of this and more because there is a leading global acceptance of what is happening within the Afghan territories and how different militant groups are gaining foothold. We continue our conversation and I'll begin with Umar. Umar, how significant is Denmark's claim that the TTP is receiving logistical and substantial support from the Afghan authorities, and what implications does this have for regional security?
So, Umar, this is really important because over the last couple of months, as you've seen, border clashes increase, attacks within Pakistan increase. Pakistan has provided evidence to the Afghan government over and over again showing that TTP is operating within their borders. We've asked them to curb their support for the TTP, don't give them a safe haven. We've gone into negotiations with them. It has escalated to the point where we had to negotiate a ceasefire deal because the Afghans asked for it. We have been raising concerns over this time that we see the same sort of pattern that we saw in Afghanistan that led to 9/11. And we have been bringing this to the international community in an effort to get their support in curbing the Afghan Taliban support for TTP and other groups that, like you mentioned, ISIL-K and others that are being given safe havens in Pakistan. So this report is very significant in those terms because even now we are hearing from European diplomats that are acknowledging what Pakistan has been saying, that TTP is operating with the support from inside Afghanistan, not just the tolerance of the government, but with actual support. So hopefully this is a wake-up call for those that were arguing against us and were saying that, that Pakistan is making things up, and this is more of an internal issue and not an issue that originates from Afghan soil. So this, in those terms, is very significant.
Is indeed extremely significant. Air Marshal Aamir Masood Saab, with the TTP operating an estimated 6,000 fighters from Afghan soil, how does this reshape Pakistan's threat perception and its counter-terrorism priorities?
So, Umar, threat perception-wise, I would say that, what we are fighting or we have been fighting towards our east and what we are now fighting towards our west, these two are different battlegrounds. We have to be very clear that because I myself have been a practitioner of both for last almost 30, 35 years, and I can say it with confirmation that they are different types of wars in which we are actually, and we have to take it like that. On the eastern side, what we faced during Pahalgam and Pulwama aftermath, those were the conventional attacks, and in which you were having an enemy which was visible and it was steel versus steel. But this war, which we are fighting towards our western side, is a more difficult, complicated war, unconventional war, where the enemy is not visible. Enemy is hiding, but they have direct links. Both eastern and western front are directly linked with each other because the enemy which lost on the eastern front and had been losing always in the conventional battlefield would like to use its proxies and its whatever resources and sources it has against Pakistan to bleed us with 1,000 cuts. and try to subdue us without firing a bullet and still keep hiding. So that's a very difficult and very complicated and very different sort of war, which we are fighting on our Western Front. And unfortunately, we have been able to lose many lives. We have been able to lose many youngsters, many civilians, many innocent children, and other, civilians due to terror attacks. And these terror attacks definitely have been by the proxies of the Indians. And TTP today is an instrument, hand in gloves with TTA, and whatever all organizations which are today having Afghanistan as its breeding ground and safe havens, because Afghanistan had been in a war state for last many decades, and it has seen nothing. Its youngsters and its three generations have seen nothing except fighting and use of arms, and that is the only way of earning and being used as mercenaries. There's no ideology factor. TTP being labeled as a terrorist organization by Denmark is another confirmation and endorsement. And there are many other organizations like BLA and other, Taliban organizations as well as Al Qaeda organizations which are there on the Afghanistan soil. They are totally now, because Pakistan having the longest and the maximum, border area along with Afghanistan, they're using all sorts of forces which are not having, TTA, Taliban Afghanistan, which is the governing body, has no control over these organizations, and they are being used indiscriminately in creating terror along the Pakistan and being financed by the Indians. So till the time they are getting their recruitment, they are getting weapons, which Americans have left in abundance in Afghanistan, more than $7 billion of weapon, and they are having the financing. These terrorist organizations will keep thriving. While we've been able to shoot and we have been able to target very accurately few of their leadership, but it is more like a starfish than a spider sort of organization where you chop off the head and there's another head which is coming up and taking over the control of that particular organization, because they are mostly mercenaries. They're not having any sort of ideology. Like you saw in the Sri Lankan case where they were able to kill Prabhakara, and then that organization totally finished and, it was completely destroyed. Here, the things are very different, and the organizations are many thriving in Afghanistan on the behest of Indians, and raw presence is.
All, as you have said, sir, that they are all thriving on the behest of India, and this is something that is becoming a reality to the world. It was a reality to Pakistan, it was a reality to Afghanistan. It was trying to kind of, put it under the rug and use India, or India using the Afghan Taliban government and all of these militants in order to create whatever has been happening in Pakistan. And now it is slowly and steadily becoming a global reality that is being accepted by across the globe. And that is what is extremely important, because it highlights Pakistan's perspective in a positive light. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. That was Air Marshal Aamir Masood Saab joining us, giving us his very apt point of view on issues concerning South Asia, concerning Pakistan, concerning, of course, our neighborhood countries as well. Now, let's now take you to the Middle East and North Africa. Israel has once again shattered the ceasefire in Gaza, killing 32 Palestinians in the past 24 hours, including 12 children and 8 women, and pushing tanks 300 meters beyond the agreed withdrawal lines. Our entire families are now besieged as strikes hit homes in Gaza and Khan Yunus, with more than 393 violations since the truce began. Analysts now warn that Israel is acting as judge, jury, and executioner, raising serious concerns about whether a ceasefire exists at all. We continue to be joined by Dr. Amna as well as Muhammad Umar to discuss more on that. We'll begin with Dr. Amna. Dr. Amna, these latest Israeli strikes that have killed 32 Palestinians in the last 24 hours alone. I'm not talking of the last 48 hours, just the last 24 hours, including children and women, because women and children have been the most of the casualties as far as this whole conflict is concerned since October 2023. How does all of this square with the obligations that Israel has committed to under the ceasefire?
Umar, it's very unfortunate, but we were predicting earlier that Israel is not going to implement its own agreed upon agreement, because they are using it just to buy time. And the agenda is, in fact, if you go through the agreement, you will find there is no assurance of making any Palestinian state. There is no assurance of giving them liberty to live their own life. The only assurance is that Hamas would be demilitarized. And it is actually the agenda of Israel to do what they could not do in the last 2 years. They could not subjugate Hamas leadership and let them surrender before Israeli atrocities to the civilian population as well. Actually, Hamas is the reaction of what Israelis were doing that. Now it is visible to the world, but every Palestinian is facing this every day. Even the girl of 3 months age, they are considered to be the terrorists, because they would be the threat to Israelis. What they have seen in their childhood, that they would reflect at the time of when they would be able to respond. So I think that this deal is not going to prevail. It is to be reviewed.
I hope it prevails, to be very frank, Dr. Amna. I really hope against hope.
It would not going to survive if Mr. Trump would not guarantee, and if Mr. Trump would not bring Mr. Netanyahu into the loop, that he has to abide by this.
All right, let's see. Anyways, Umar, what does Israel's 300-meter advance beyond the agreed yellow line in eastern Gaza reveal about its intentions and the respect for ceasefire boundaries?
Umar, absolutely no respect. It's an attempt to shift the boundaries on the ground. When you push past the line you agreed to, you're not securing the troops. You're basically redrawing territory by force. The way you have to frame it, the way you have to think about this, and unfortunately, as you mentioned earlier, I really was hoping that this time, because of the international community's involvement, because of the Trump administration's involvement, that this ceasefire would hold. But clearly, there's enough Zionism influence for the Zionist ideology where we're seeing that be the reason that this is falling apart. The Zionist ideology doesn't see Palestinian people, as human beings. And the violations, this is how they're able to sort of advocate or find excuses to say, hey, a small kid threw a rock, or a small kid looked at me this way, or a person driving rolled down their window, and that's reason enough for us to violate the ceasefire because we saw that as a potential threat. So this is already they're using force to redraw and the agreement that they agreed to for the ceasefire. Now, the good thing is, as you saw with the Crown Prince's visit to Washington, D.C. earlier this week, that in the White House, in front of the press, the Saudi Crown Prince said, look, we're willing to negotiate, we're willing to recognize the Abraham Accords if you're ready and willing to recognize and get us to a two-state solution. So I know there's a lot happening in the background, and I really, really hope that the Trump administration is able to somehow not fall victim to the Zionist ideology and influence that exists in Washington, D.C., and is able to hold Israel accountable for their actions.
All right. Let's see, because a lot of things are coming to light now, and there is a lot of pressure. I can understand as well, as far as this ceasefire agreement going into effect and continuing to stay in effect, contrary to what Dr. Amna says. Speaking of that, Dr. Amna, Israel is escalating attacks in both Gaza as well as in Lebanon. I talked about Lebanon yesterday as well. How likely is there going to be a regional spillover if ceasefire violations go unchecked?
Unfortunately, there would be no spillover, because you see that they are escalating on one side. In Lebanon, they have attacked the civilian population as well, and at the same time, they are fencing that boundary. On the other side, Gazans, without any provocation from Gazans, they are attacked. Similarly, they are continued with their settlements in West Bank. It means that West Bank is also, and 260 people died in this period in West Bank, where there was no resentment. And now you see that they have captured Golan Heights, and now they are advancing to South Syria, and they are challenging the UN forces to evacuate that for the security of Golan Heights. Then how Syria would keep its integrity and sovereignty intact? So it is over. I think when we are overestimating the capacity of this deal, that it can bring peace. Israel is very clear in its all ideologies, and it is just a matter of buying time. You see, the Oslo Accord was for Israeli security. This accord is also for the Israeli security. And one thing that which was very important, that under the UN resolutions and the EU stated position and all the stated position of OIC and Arab League, that Israel has to go to 1965 pre-1967 war position, 67 war position, and then there would be two-state solution, and there would be no capacity of any of the nation neighboring Israel and including the United States to assert any influence on Mr. Netanyahu to let him abide by this all.
But you know, to be very frank, before we end this segment, US officials are also acknowledging the Israeli wrongdoing. We've got Senator Cory Booker, who warns of unchecked settler violence, and the ambassador, US Ambassador Mike Huckabee, who himself says that the Israeli settler attacks is terrorism. I mean, there is an acknowledgement of what the Israelis are doing. Whether that translates into action, as you've been saying, is another thing altogether. Nevertheless, interesting point of view from you as well. Let's now take you to the West. US President Donald Trump has signed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, ordering the Justice Department to release all the unclassified Epstein records within 30 days. This law, passed almost unanimously in Congress, bans withholding files to protect powerful figures from embarrassment. With up to 100,000 pages still unseen, Trump claims Democrats will be most exposed, while critics doubt his administration will fully comply. Public pressure for full disclosure remains intense. Our first question goes to Umar. Umar, what impact could the release of up to 100,000 pages of the Epstein files have on public trust, especially given the political and social prominence of many individuals linked to him?
So if this is done properly, it's a stress test for the public trust. On one side, people will finally get to see whether powerful names were protected or not, as has been the campaign for the last 2 years to try to get these files out. On the other hand, if the files show a long pattern of impunity for rich men while victims beg for justice, and you saw many victims committed suicide, took their own lives, then trust might fall in the short term. But that's still healthier than pretending nothing happened and that there were no files. So again, if this is decades of materials we're talking about, we're talking about investigations that took place in multiple states, in multiple countries, internal Department of Justice emails, flight logs, bank records, including communications about Jeffrey Epstein taking his own life while in custody. So, it's going to be more than just gossip about who was on the plane.
I totally agree with you. It's going to be more than gossip, Umar, but it's going to be very interesting to see whether those 100,000 pages are actually being seen and read by every single individual who can do so, and what kind of implication is it going to have not only for the Democrats, for the Republicans, but all those public figures who've been involved with Epstein over the last decades. This is something that we'll wait and see in the coming days and weeks. Thank you very much, Muhammad Umar, to have joined us. Thank you very much, Dr. Amna, to have joined us as well. Stay with us for one more minute till I end this show. Last story concerns a solid gold toilet, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, a solid gold toilet that has been sold for $12.1 million US at Sotheby's on Tuesday night. One of a half dozen substantial pieces offered at auction this week amid a downturn in high dollar art sales. Bidding for the toilet, a piece called America, made by Italian conceptual artist Maurizio Catalan, with more than 220 pounds of 18-karat gold, started at $10 million US. This was created in 2016. The piece weighs roughly 101 kgs and is made entirely of solid gold. One version was publicly exhibited at the Solomon Guggenheim Museum in New York, and another was later stolen from Blenheim Palace in England. It remains missing. Now, the edition sold in November 2025 at Sotheby's in New York was privately owned since 2017 and came up for auction at a starting bid around $10 million US. Catalan describes the work as a biting satire of extreme wealth and consumption. Whether you eat, whatever you eat, a $200 lunch or a $2 hot dog, the results are the same. Toilet-wise. This is what he says. We'll end on this note, ladies and gentlemen. This brings us to the end of today's Beyond Borders. It has been an exciting journey this week as well. We brought you programs, we brought you shows from across the world, stories that mattered for the entire world, not just South Asia, but also Central Asia, the Middle East and North Africa and the West. And we'll continue to do so in the weeks ahead as well, because this is what we want. We want you to be apprised about what is happening across the world, not only you, but you and you in South Africa, America and Europe as well. Till we meet again on Monday next, Allah Hafiz.